What's going on, y'all? In this episode, we're going to talk about voting, and the election is not coming. The election is here. Early voting is already underway in several states and is about to start in several others. Some people have decided that it is their responsibility to lecture an entire voting block on voting because not enough of them are supporting their chosen candidate. So we'll discuss that. And then there are a couple of other voting blocks that have decided for whatever reason that they're not going to vote. They're apathetic to the process and may not bother voting. So we'll get into that as well. Now let's get after it. So Barkey, my name for for former President Obama, thought that it was a good idea to lecture black men about their lack of enthusiastic support for Kamala Harris. Now, this guy's man card, this guy's man card was revoked a very long time ago. Come on. This is like he's doing something. Now, the medical issue I had a couple of years ago deteriorated a lot of my muscles, and I am nowhere near as strong as I used to be. But I can still do better than that. And even before that, his man card was probably revoked when he married Michael or Michelle, depending on how you want to how you want to look at it. Oh, anyway, with that out of the way and setting the stage for that, here is the lecture, his lecture to black men. I believe it was in Pittsburgh a few days ago. Check this out.
My understanding, based on reports I'm getting from campaigns and communities, is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now,
Maybe that's because we saw how fake and phony you were, and we're seeing that same fake, phony nonsense from Kamala. Just a thought.
I also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
With the brothers. Come on. Come on.
So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly
Yeah, I mind.
and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you,
She did not grow up like a lot of these dudes in this. Come on. She claims she was middle class. Come on. Anyway.
Went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences.
She didn't have those experiences. She doesn't know what it means to struggle. Come on. She has had everything handed to her. She has failed upwards her entire life. Come on.
And that's on one side. And on the other side, you have someone who has consistently shown disregard, not just for the communities, but for you as a person. And you're thinking about sitting out, and you're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that. Because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly now, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. And you're coming.
No, just this particular woman. People want someone who is the most qualified. Now, some people may make the argument that a woman can never be more qualified than a man, and that's a whole other discussion, but we're talking about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump right now. And between those two, there really is no comparison.
Coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that.
Yes.
And so now you're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you?
Which is just a bold-faced lie, an absolute abomination of a lie. I mean, this is...
Because you think that's a sign of strength? Because that's what being a man is? Putting women down? That's not acceptable. That's not, this shouldn't even be a question.
He's right. It shouldn't even be a question. And who does this guy think he is talking about what it means to be a man? Like I said, his man card was revoked a long time, if he was ever even issued one, frankly. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. And we have lived, black men, white men, we have all, if we're awake and not living under a rock, we have all lived through the past 3, nearly 4 years now of the Biden-Harris administration, and it has been an abject failure, an utter disaster. And she said herself on several occasions, and so has Biden, that she was instrumental in a lot of the decisions that have been made, a lot of the policies that have been put in place. And when asked, she said that she would not do anything differently. So who in their right mind would sign up and vote for 4 more years of that? It's ridiculous. But as we all know, they think we're stupid. And they think because the chosen one gets up in front of a bunch of black folks and chides them a little bit, that we're going to fall in line. Come on. And then to top it off, this happened after I actually prepared for the show, so I don't have any clips or anything ready, but she had her virtual or audio town hall with Charlemagne the Fool. I refuse to call him what he calls himself. Leonard McKelvey is his real name. She had that ridiculous town hall where she spouted off, regurgitated the same ridiculous talking points. Middle class family, I'm gonna have more about it in another video, but it was just more ridiculous. Just I don't even know how to describe it. It's just more of the abomination that is the Kamala Harris candidacy. And she was gaslighting the the entire American Pravda, including her, is gaslighting us into believing that at Trump's town hall, where there were two medical emergencies, and he decided to, instead of carrying on after those medical emergencies, to just play some music and actually have some joy and some levity in the proceedings. But they're trying to characterize it as he had a mental breakdown, and one idiot, I can't remember if it was Stephen King or maybe it was Keith Olbermann, talked about him being in a fugue state. Just utterly ridiculous. But getting back to Kamila and that stupid audio town hall she put on display once again that she is not smart. She is woefully unqualified to be commander in chief, and she should not get anywhere near the Oval Office. It's just why anyone would vote for more of that, like I said, is just absolutely beyond me. And aside from the black men, black people in general who are choosing not to support Kamala Harris, whether or not that's voting for Trump or just not voting in general, there are a couple of other groups of people who have decided that they may not want to vote in this election. And one of those groups is Christians. And it seems that millions of Christians are choosing not to vote in this election. And to me, that is a mistake of potentially catastrophic proportions. Because Christians who don't vote, Christians who don't participate in this process, run the risk of having a government run by people who hate God. And when they hate God, they are going to pass laws and implement policies that go directly against everything that we stand for and hold dear. So I believe that Christians have an obligation to participate and an obligation to vote for people who will uphold biblical principles, who have a biblical worldview. And or at the very least, if they're not guided by the word of God, at the very least won't suppress the word of God, who won't actively try and suppress and do what this administration is doing and marginalize Christians and people who believe in the word of God. Because we're living in the consequences right now of not participating and allowing these demonically influenced people to run the government. We're living through it right now. Our obligation is to spread the word of God. Go forth and make disciples. That's our job. And how can we do that if we're going to vote for people who reject that entire notion, who reject everything that the Bible commands? So we need to vote for leaders who, if, like I said, if they're not going to be led by the word, at the very least, will allow people who are led by the word to do that, and to not suppress that, not go against, openly support everything that goes against what we believe and what we stand for. And when it comes to that metric, when it comes to that standard, the choice this time around couldn't be more obvious. Could not be more obvious. And I pray that Christians who under I pray that Christians actually realize what's at stake and come to the realization that they must, absolutely must participate and and cannot vote, must not vote for the Democrats. They can't, because as we just talked about, they support, they stand for, they advocate for everything that Christians are against. They advocate for killing babies. They advocate and celebrate homosexuality and gender confusion, also known by them as transgenderism, which isn't really a thing, and we can get into that at another time. But these people actively support and celebrate everything that we're against, and we voting for them, voting for anyone who supports that is a mistake. Voting for it, I don't know how else to put it. Voting for them is something that we must not do. So Christians, tens of millions of Christians, according to this study, are either, well, tens of millions of Christians are not registered to vote, and so they're not participating in the process. And if they did, conservatives would never lose another election. And we'll talk about that another time too. But another group of people who are not registered to vote by the tens of millions are gun owners, hunters and gun owners. According to a study by Vote for America, 10 million gun owners and hunters are not registered to vote. Take a look at this. And this is from AmmoLand, and this is from a few months ago, I think back in July. And the most important presidential election, according to them, since the founding of our republic, and that is probably not an exaggeration for reasons that we'll get into. But according to AmmoLand, the outcome of this election will determine whether we as Americans secure our nation as a free constitutional republic as the framers crafted it, or we continue down the path Joe Biden and his owners behind the scenes have set for us. And look at this. This is from Vote for America, and this graphic was put out by Women for Gun Rights. In just these 10 states, Pennsylvania has 515,000 gun owners not registered to vote. Michigan, 370,000. And I'm rounding up. You can see these numbers for yourself, and I have a link to this article in the description. North Carolina, 370. Georgia, 350,000. Wisconsin, 338,000. And the list goes on: Missouri, Virginia, Arizona, Nevada, Montana. Gun owners not registered to vote. While our Second Amendment rights have been under attack for decades, they have been trying to disarm us for decades. And it blows my mind that this many people who not just hunt, but use firearms to protect themselves, to protect their families, to protect their property. This many people not participating, not voting to protect our rights is one of the reasons why they've been so successful at eroding the Second Amendment. They know they can't repeal it. They know that getting a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Second Amendment is probably never going to happen. But there are over 30,000 laws on the books restricting our right to keep and bear arms between state, local, and federal jurisdictions. And if they realize that they're not going to be able to get the Second Amendment repealed or anything like that, so they are intent on passing all of these different ridiculous laws to render the Second Amendment basically toothless, meaningless. Yeah, it's there, but there's so many restrictions that it almost means nothing. That's their goal. If they can't get it repealed, that's their alternative. And it's been working. They've been successful at getting a lot of these ridiculous laws passed. And with this many people not participating, it makes me wonder if they really do value the Second Amendment. And I know they do. I know they do. But it just makes no sense that they would sit out. It's truly mystifying. So people, please get out and vote. Make your voices heard. Protect your rights. The left is mobilizing to try and make sure that women can kill their children, kill their babies. We need to mobilize so that we can preserve our First and Second Amendment rights to speak freely, to gather at our churches and not have to worry about the government coming in and saying it's illegal. Because if they get their way, if they get their way, that's coming. That is coming. And when they take away the First Amendment and then the Second Amendment, they already see us as slaves to do their bidding and to produce wealth for them. If they take away our ability to, they'll never take away our ability to worship. We'll always be able to worship God. But if they take away our ability to gather together like that, and then take away our ability to protect ourselves, what's left? So get out there, vote, register to vote, get people you know who are not registered to vote, take them to register to vote, and we need to not let this happen. Because like I said, early voting is underway, and according to some of the projections, and I know that's from the American Pravda, so who knows how reliable those numbers really are, but in some states where early voting has started, Kamala is in the lead. We can't let that lead last. We have to get out there and vote. We have to register to vote. We have to make sure that we don't let this happen. We don't let what they have planned happen. So go vote. All right, y'all. Speaking of dudes who had their man cards revoked, we got to talk about tampon Tim Walz before we get you out of here. And I'm sure you've heard, I'm sure you've seen the ridiculous display of him trying to load his shotgun when he went on a pheasant hunt. Check this out.
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400. I bought it when I was shooting a lot of trap because it has a kind of their patented thing, a kickoff. So when you get old, it doesn't hurt your shoulder as much.
Clear?
This guy, who allegedly carried weapons of war when he was in the military, couldn't figure out how to load a shotgun. A very expensive shotgun, by the way. A Beretta A400 is not cheap. I think they retail for somewhere around 2,200, 2,500 bucks. And he struggled to load it. Wow. And you couldn't really tell in that shot, but in other videos where he's coming up to the camp where they're about to start their hunt, he's in obviously brand new clothes that were probably not cheap, carrying a very expensive shotgun that he can't load, and okay, this guy was brought into the Harris campaign to allegedly appeal to men, and he can't load a shotgun, and he's talking about the recoil pad on it, which is on every long gun, by the way, because he can't take the recoil from his shotgun, and he's supposed to be a man's man. It's pathetic. It really is. It's pathetic, and his man card has been revoked as well. And when you just look at him when he walks out on stage at these events with his gesticulations and his obvious effeminate behavior, I mean, this guy, I can't think of any dudes that this guy appeals to, that because he's on the ticket, that would swing them to vote for Harris. I can't think of any. No men with normal testosterone levels could think about voting for this guy. Maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. Anyway, folks, that's all I got for you on this one. I will try to do better the next time. Please remember to hit the like button, subscribe, share these videos so that we can spread the message, spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, spread the message of hope and the blessings of liberty that he promised us, so that we can preserve it for future generations. And as always, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.